Psychology says people who grew up in the 1970s are often misunderstood. You are not outdated, not emotionally closed, and not behind the times. In many cases, they were shaped by a world that demanded resilience, independence, and emotional strength far earlier than it does today. So today, we're talking about the rare psychological traits commonly found in people who grew up in the 1970s, without romanticizing the past and without criticizing the present. Growing up in the 1970s wasn't better or worse, it was different, and that difference shaped how the mind developed. So this video isn't about saying, you're tougher than everyone else, or you're emotionally damaged. It's about understanding how your upbringing shaped your psychology. So let's break down these rare traits and why they're becoming increasingly uncommon today. 1. You developed strong emotional self-reliance. If you grew up in the 1970s, chances are you learned early how to handle things on your own. Children were given more freedom and more responsibility. You weren't constantly monitored, you weren't emotionally micromanaged, and you weren't taught to outsource every feeling. Psychologically, this built emotional self-reliance. You learned to calm yourself down, entertain yourself, problem-solve independently, and sit with discomfort. You don't panic easily, you don't expect constant reassurance, and you don't assume someone will always rescue you emotionally. That doesn't mean you don't feel deeply. It means you learned how to carry your emotions without collapsing under them. 2. You're comfortable with boredom and silence. People who grew up in the 1970s experienced something rare today: unstructured time. No constant screens, no endless notifications, no instant entertainment. Psychology shows that frequent boredom in childhood strengthens imagination, creativity, patience, and internal focus. You learned how to make meaning out of nothing. Silence doesn't scare you. Downtime doesn't make you restless. And being alone with your thoughts doesn't feel threatening. In a world that now avoids silence at all costs, this ability has quietly become a rare cognitive skill. 3. You value privacy and personal space. Growing up in the 1970s meant less exposure and less surveillance. Your mistakes weren't recorded, your thoughts weren't broadcast, your identity wasn't constantly displayed. Psychologically, this created a strong sense of boundaries, personal space, and inner privacy. You don't feel the need to share everything. You don't confuse visibility with value. And you don't equate being known with being exposed. You understand that some parts of life are meant to stay personal. This often gets misread as being closed off, but it's actually psychological containment. 4. You developed practical resilience, not performative toughness. People who grew up in the 1970s weren't taught to talk endlessly about feelings. They were taught to handle life. This doesn't eliminate emotion. It taught functioning through emotion. You learned how to keep going, how to adapt, how to tolerate frustration, and how to recover quietly. Your resilience isn't loud. It's not performative. It doesn't need applause. It shows up when things fall apart and you still move forward. 5. You separate self-worth from external validation. In the 1970s, identity wasn't built online. There were no likes, no follows, no public metrics for worth. Psychology shows that growing up without constant external validation helps form a more stable internal sense of self. You don't need approval from everyone. You don't define yourself by attention. And you don't feel invisible just because you're quiet. Your sense of value comes from what you can do, what you've endured, and who you are when no one is watching. That's not arrogance, that's grounded self-worth. Some traits fade with generations, others become rare, and many of the traits shaped in the 1970s are quietly becoming some of the most valuable today. If this video resonated, you're not alone. And if you want psychology explained in ways school never taught you, ways that help you understand how your past shaped your present, hit that subscribe button. Because the next video might help you see your life, not as outdated, but as deeply formative.